Boom. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a couple weeks, or no, really a few months since I've done anything football wise on this channel or talked anything football wise, or I have since I posted anything since my Tuscaloosa tornado documentary, 10 years. But anyway, Auburn football started a couple weeks ago. I didn't feel like doing a show for cupcake teams like Akron and Alabama State. Obviously, those were 60-plus point blowouts. And now we're getting ready for Penn State. And, of course, as you can see, my guest to my right is a fellow he's not a fellow Tennessee fan like me. I'm an Auburn fan. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Squid Tard. How you doing, Squid?
Doing amazing. How are you, Tiger War Eagle? It's been a while.
It has been a while, man. I've been so busy and trying to juggle things around with live and everything. But, man, it's great to be back doing this. And I can't wait to get ready to do some more football this year. And I'm actually really excited about it. Probably the most I've been excited for it in a long time. I really wasn't excited about it last year because, you had the COVID crap going on. You had fans limited. But now that fans are back and everything, man, I'm pumped. And, of course, our new head coach, Brian Harsin. I haven't given my public thoughts about him on YouTube yet. But my thoughts, I honestly didn't think we were ever going to get him. I when they announced the name of who he was, I'm like, who? Who is Brian Harsin? So I had to look him up, and he came from Boise State. He's a Boise guy. He grew up in Boise, was born there, and then he just left. And I honestly didn't think we'd ever get someone from Idaho. But you know what? I like him. I like how he talks. I like the way he's speaking things, and I like how he thinks of football and everything, and like his game plan. But 2-0 right now under Brian Harsin, his first ever season at Auburn. Several new coaches in the SEC also. The Josh Heupel, I think that's his name. The Heupel era is underway at Tennessee. By the way, we'll get to Tennessee in a minute. We got a lot of news here in the world of college football, and we'll begin with something that happened back in July. And honestly, I'm honestly pretty excited about it. Texas and Oklahoma have officially signed to join the SEC. This was back in like July, early August, late July, and they will at least they're expected to be in the SEC by 2025. But in my opinion, I think either next year or in 2023 is when we're going to see the Longhorns and the Sooners battling it out in the SEC. Squid Tard, I'm pretty sure you did a show about it yourself, talking about Tennessee and Oklahoma, but what are your thoughts on the Sooners and the Longhorns coming to the SEC?
Well, let me tell you, it's definitely weird, with Missouri and Texas A&M coming to the SEC. I thought kind of like, it was kind of weird seeing both of those teams since they're not really Southeastern. They're more of like the Mid-Eastern, Midwestern teams, and weird seeing them come in. And with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, it feels a lot less like it's the Southeastern Conference and more of just the BEST Conference as just all the best teams keep rolling in. And, with this big conference like this, I feel like the SEC has just become this overpowered super conference. And basically, whoever wins that conference is no doubt getting into whatever playoffs ever happen. So, good for Texas and Oklahoma rolling in. And as we've already known, Texas got a taste of the SEC after getting their cheeks clapped by Arkansas, which that was fun to watch. But we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, I watched Texas Arkansas the other night, and I was like, man, I was really excited about it. When they announced I honestly didn't know the schedule until the other day when it was going to be Texas Arkansas playing. I'm like, oh man, I forgot about this. They were supposed to play this year, so I watched it. I'm like, this ain't fun at all because I was really hoping to be a great matchup. But Texas, I'll tell you, the first thought that came into my mind when I saw that score was like, well, welcome to the SEC, Horns. You're gonna need all the luck you're gonna need to have.
No doubt.
At this point, you can probably guess on who's the worst UT Knoxville or UT Austin. But speaking of Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC and you having two teams leave the Big 12. Big 12 just announced the other day that University of Central Florida, Cincinnati, BYU, and Houston are now part of the Big 12. Well, not yet. At least by 2023 is what I saw is when UCF will be in the Big 12, and they're going to have all these other teams. And 3 out of these 4 teams I've just mentioned are going to be in the Big 12. I'm sorry. 3 out of these 4 teams are coming from the American Athletic Conference, BYU being an independent and former Mountain West Conference team. And so you got 3 American teams leaving that were pretty good in the American Athletic Conference, including Central Florida. Who do you see the American Athletic or the American? Who do you see them adding to their conference?
Well, to be honest, here's what I thought was going to happen. I thought after Texas and Oklahoma left, I thought because the Big 12 was never going to be the same after Texas and Oklahoma left, no doubt about it. You can't name a team in the past 20 years that's won a national championship in the Big 12 other than Oklahoma or Texas. And I can't name the last time that a team from that division won a Big 12 championship that wasn't Oklahoma or Texas either. So with them leaving, I thought that was going to be the catalyst in which the Pac-12 or not the Pac, the Big 12 would just disband. And I thought a lot of those teams like TCU, Texas Tech, I thought they were going to go. I thought they were going to go American. Maybe I thought maybe they might have gone to the Pac-12, but I just did not see that happening. But with this coming in now, I'm not sure whether or not the American plans on picking anybody else, or if they just plan on disbanding the conference later. Because obviously, losing teams like UCF and Cincinnati to the Big 12, those are brutal. I mean, those are brutal losses for that conference. So I don't know what's going to happen to it, but what I do know is that's going to change. It's going to change college football in the future entirely.
Yeah, I don't know if I could see TCU going to the American because they just literally a couple years ago they literally just finally got into the big conference, and I don't think they're going to leave. Probably the biggest conference they've been in since the old Southwest Conference, where Texas, TCU, Houston, Baylor, SMU, I think I already said them, but yeah, SMU was in that conference, and this was like back in the day when SMU was a perennial powerhouse. But if I can choose, if I were the AAC commissioner, the American Athletic Commissioner, I would choose maybe you have to choose teams that are from like near big markets, like Temple's in Philadelphia. Tulsa is a pretty good city in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You've got SMU in Dallas, Houston or Rice. They're in Houston as well. So you got all these big school, you got these teams that are in middle to high market cities. Like, and if I had to choose, I would choose UAB because Birmingham is a pretty good city. Florida Atlantic, which is just outside of Miami, and I can't remember the town, but it's in that area close to Miami. And then I could also maybe add Marshall. Huntington, West Virginia is also a pretty good town. And then you also have Rice. Rice could be a good contender to go into the American Athletic Conference because it's in Houston. You need to have that Houston market right there on your table, and that's what I think the American Athletic should go after: UAB, Rice, Florida Atlantic, and Rice.
Marshall. I actually think this won't be the end of a conference expansion or a conference loss for the Big 12. In terms of course, losing Oklahoma and Texas, we already know that's happening. I actually think that the Big 12 is getting ready to lose West Virginia as well. Because, thing is, West Virginia is compared to pretty much every other team in the Big 12 is way out there on the coast. And they're way closer to the ACC than they are the Big 12. And the reason why I think West Virginia, when this conference expansion happens for the SEC, for them to move to the ACC is because I think around that same exact time, the ACC is going to finally do what they should have done a long time ago and bring in Notre Dame. And I think with bringing in Notre Dame, they're also going to bring in West Virginia. That's just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, if West Virginia were to probably leave the Big 12 and head to, I'd say they would go to the ACC because that's that's been a popular answer for everybody that asked, hey, if Big 12 were to get rid of West Virginia or West Virginia were to leave the Big 12, where do you want to see them go? Everyone's always said ACC, and I can see it because you have those rivalries, those border rivalries with Maryland. Well, no, Maryland's not part of the ACC anymore. Please forget I said that. You got Virginia, Virginia Tech, just those schools that could be a good rival to West Virginia, and I the battle of West Virginia, East Virginia. Yeah, well, there's no East Virginia. I don't think there is one. Now, speaking of Big 12, could they maybe have one more? Because there have been reports that they might add one more team, and that one more team could perhaps, maybe, be Boise State. Do you think you could see Boise State perhaps being finally getting to a big conference like they deserve?
I think it's possible, but to me, I feel like Boise State, if they were to make a move to one of the Power Five, it would more likely be the Pac-12, because just based on geography, yeah, they're closer. But I think a move to the Big 12 would more likely suit Boise State in terms of that, because if they're picking up teams like Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati, I think Boise State would be a great pick for that as well. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, of course, I'm out of decision as well. Let's go ahead and move on to our next topic now. Obviously, 20 years ago, this past Saturday was the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks on the New York City, Washington, in two buildings in New York City, the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and then in a rural field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And on this image I just pulled up here, this is actually what Auburn did on 9/11. And this is a photo of a piece of steel from one of the twin towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, which was donated on November the 15th, 2000. I think it says November 13th or November 13th or 15th. I can't see that far.
No, it says November 13th, 2015.
Okay, yeah, November 13th, 2015. It was for the fallen members of the NYPD. And of course, we can't forget the FDNY. Those guys are well, in my opinion, badasses. Because they had to climb up those stairs, and of course, across the country the other day, you seen tributes by different firefighters from different cities by like climbing stairs, 110 stories, or climbing 430. I think it was 343 stairs in honor of the 343 FDNY members that were killed. But it was donated by a former PAPD officer, that stands for Port Authority Police Department of New York City. And that man was Will Jimeno. Now, if you're not familiar with Will Jimeno, you'd have to watch, or if you're perhaps familiar with Will Jimeno, you remember him for his story in the movie World Trade Center by Oliver Stone, where he and his Sergeant John McLaughlin, were trapped under the rubble for about, I think it was 13 or 18 hours at the World Trade Center complex for so long. And I mean, they were pinned under rubble, under concrete, and they both survived. I mean, it's a miracle story.
Mm-hmm.
And now you might be wondering why, like, what's the connection here? Well, in fact, Will Jimeno, and by the way, the guy that played him in the movie was Michael Pena, who you might remember him being in, I think, Ant-Man or something. Anyway, Will Jimeno donated this to Auburn University, first off, because his daughter, one of his daughters, went to Auburn University, class of 2019. And, of course, the second reason is he loves Auburn, and I didn't know that until a couple years ago. So, hey, a shout out to Will Jimeno and, of course, Sergeant McLaughlin. I mean, those two are just warriors that, I mean, I honestly wouldn't have a chance under all that mess. I mean, it's unbelievable. That story. I mean, if you haven't seen World Trade Center by Oliver Stone, I recommend you watch it because it's unbelievable at what they
no doubt.
They
were all super brave.
Oh, yes.
All my respect goes out to them.
And we also 20 years remember them, so never forget. Next topic. Let's go back to Arkansas real quick. Is Arkansas football back, or is this because Texas is this bad?
Well, that's a tough question to answer. It's only 2 weeks into the season. I think To be honest, I think we'd have to see more from both teams. I think Arkansas definitely took a big step in the right direction. We saw the same thing last year and the year before that. It didn't take Sam Pittman too long to get this program moving forward. He only had 3 wins last year, but now look at where he's going right now. He's moving in the right direction. I believe he's 2-0. Just got a huge win over a top 15 Texas team. In terms of where Texas is, I think people look at them and just think they're just horrifically bad. And that could be true. We have yet to see what Texas looks like, but they just got through beating up on a ranked Louisiana Lafayette team.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, that seems like a pretty substantial win in terms of just an overall win. Had Texas struggled, which they really didn't, they had a pretty easy win in that game. Maybe I would have thought that they were highly overrated, but no, I just think Arkansas is a lot better than what people expected.
Yeah, I'm just looking back over their schedule from last year to see how many wins they actually had. Of course, in case everyone don't remember, the season was shortened to 10 games. 10 conference games only. Arkansas had their first SEC win in a long while on October 3rd, 2020, by beating then ranked number 16 Mississippi State. They went 3-7 that last year. So if you count that for normal season, that would probably be at least 5 SEC wins, which is not bad. So I'd say Arkansas football is right now on the rise to being back again. So, and then let's go from Arkansas to next door to Tennessee. Now, last Saturday, Tennessee looked good. I was paying attention to a little bit on my phone while I was at the Auburn game, and I was thinking, hey, Tennessee ain't that bad. And then all of a sudden, the scoreboard changes. Pittsburgh leads. I'm like, what is going on, man? And then at the end of the game, they show the final score: Pitt 41, Tennessee 34. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Once again, the Vols let the SEC down after 1 week after LSU let us down, and I think they dubbed that game the Johnny Majors Classic, I believe.
Yes.
And I honestly had no clue he even coached at Pittsburgh. I didn't even know Pittsburgh had – I knew they had a football team. Let me say that. But I didn't even know that they had 9 national championships. When was the last time they won one? 1976. I looked it up.
Mm-hmm.
I was bamboozled. I'm like, wait a minute. This team won 9 national championships before? And then I did a little more research. Pittsburgh had Dan Marino and Larry Fitzgerald, which I didn't know that Larry went to Pittsburgh. I figured he probably went to maybe California or Southern Cal. But anyway, Tennessee, man. I know it's Josh Heupel's first year, and I do hope he's going to do great there. But what can you say about what happened Saturday? And of course, you're a Tennessee fan, but what can you say about what happened Saturday against Pitt?
Well, to be honest, there were definitely a lot of people were expecting us to lose that game. More or less, it's not the fact that we lost that really made me upset with our performance on Saturday. It was more about the way we lost. Pittsburgh, I give all respect to Pittsburgh because, a lot of people think they're just the middle-of-the-road ACC team. But to be honest, they're the only ACC team I've seen so far that's actually performed up to their expectations, if not beyond. North Carolina lost to Virginia Tech in a horrible manner. Miami got absolutely obliterated by Alabama. And then Clemson couldn't even put up a point against Georgia. So, all those teams really laid an egg except for Pittsburgh. So I think they need a lot of respect. But as for Tennessee, I just think there's so many things that went wrong in that game. For one thing, to be honest with you, I think a lot of the issue went down to coaching. Now, of course, I talked about Joe Milton, who was the quarterback for that game, and he just looked – Joe Milton, to me, looked horrendous as a quarterback. Just did not have it together. I'll give the kid credit. He's got arm. He's definitely got an arm for sure. He can throw 100 yards down the field without a problem. No doubt about that. He can run the ball really well. He's able to get out of the pocket. He's able to do a lot of that. He's a good dual threat from what I've seen. The problem with that is he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. He'd throw it over the barn. it's ridiculous watching him throw that ball and watching it go 20, 30 yards over the receiver that he's going after. Even, and this is one example of this, wide open receiver in the middle, he threw way over his head. There was no defender in sight. He had a perfect opportunity to just give the ball to him, just toss it. It wasn't a deep ball either. It was like a 20-yard just pass over the middle. No defender in sight for that receiver. I believe it was Cedric Tillman he was throwing it to, and he just could not connect with any of the deep ball. And the reason I blame that on coaching is, he missed the deep ball every single time. So why continue to run to the shotgun formation and let him throw deep? I don't get it. If you know that he doesn't have it together on the deep ball, then there's two things you need to do with that. Either switch to a new style of offense that would fit him better, or sub him out for another quarterback, Hendon Hooker, who actually I thought Hendon Hooker didn't look too bad on Saturday. I know he had that interception at the end, which really got to me because that Pitt was keeping us around for the entirety of that game. They did not want us to. It's almost like they just wanted to give us the game really bad, and we wouldn't let him. We absolutely would not let him. Hendon Hooker didn't really have it much together either. So I'm still on the Harrison Bailey train, but I do know that if Josh Heupel, here's the thing. I know if Joe Milton can throw if he can connect with a deep ball, he'd probably be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC right now. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I do agree. Joe Milton, he looks like he could be a really, really good quarterback. The problem is, like you said, he overthrows. And I was watching the highlight reel the other day. I'm like, dude, why are you still over the it felt like he did it 5 times in a row. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Who are you throwing it to? But hey, you know what? I'll give him credit. He does have an arm, but he just got to learn to control.
Exactly.
Bo Nix. Yeah, he did throw into coverage the other day against Alabama State, but there was also a lot of moments where his receivers were just dropping, and that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about later, but that's one of the things that's going to worry me about this Saturday. Can our receivers catch the ball against Penn State? Can our offensive line protect Bo? And we'll talk about that later on. But this next team I'm going to talk about here, look, Tennessee's going to be fine, but this next team I'm fixing to talk about, I'm telling you, dude, I don't know what happened to this team, man. Florida State is hosting Jacksonville State at home in Tallahassee. And here we're watching this play.
Down the field.
I forgot the receiver's name. And look.
He's free. Phil Y'all Johnson at the 10.
Number 10 for Florida State. Look. I don't know what players are doing, giving up on a defensive stop. And, look. Okay, let me get off that real quick because I'll go ahead and say this. This is the next part of my show. Has Florida State, to you, hit the absolute deepest part of rock bottom?
Yeah, it's hard to tell, man. I really, to be honest with you, I don't think it could get much deeper down the rabbit hole than losing to Jacksonville State on a Hail Mary at home. I really don't think there's any reviving that, getting out of that rabbit hole. Mike Norvell, he told everybody that he was going to revive this program. He had the right players, had Mackenzie Milton, but golly, man, that is a brutal, absolutely brutal loss to take. I really don't think there's any hope for Florida State this season. And
no.
Honestly, after seeing that, where do you go from there, to be honest? Where do you go from there?
You just got to keep trying, man. That'd be the one thing I'd say. After that, I'll be honest, I didn't watch the game because I forgot they were playing. I didn't even know they were playing, to be honest. And I get a notification on my phone, Jacksonville State beats Florida State. There was this Google scoreboard thing. It said JSU 20, Florida State 17. I'm like, no way. That's got to be some sort of mistypo. So I look it up, and it's true. Florida State loses to Jacksonville State on the Hail Mary. And I was thinking right there, they're fixing to fire this dude. You can't go 2 years in. You can't even beat Miami I can't remember if he did during his time, Mike Norvell at Florida State. You can't lose to Miami, and then all of a sudden you're going to lose to JSU at home. I mean, that right there gave me flashbacks of when Auburn struggled against Jacksonville State at home, but then again, JSU was a very good program. I mean, at that time, they had a great season and went to the national championship game. Of course, got beat by North Dakota State, but still, it don't matter who you're playing. It don't matter if you're playing the team from what's that show with Paul Walker? But anyway, it don't matter who you're playing. You've got to beat your opponent down, and that's Auburn that the past 2 weeks, and now we're getting ready for our test this Saturday, which brings us to my next topic. While we're talking about Florida State, so Notre Dame, obviously, they barely beat Florida State in overtime on last Sunday, and I was thinking, dang, Florida State might actually be good again. And then, of course, they would lose JSU. But now that Notre Dame barely beat Toledo, I mean, is Notre Dame that bad?
Yeah, this is nothing new to me. Notre Dame, I mean, this is literally every year with Notre Dame. And I was going to talk about this. I'm glad you're giving me the opportunity to. Notre Dame, to me, especially on this season, has done this every single year. They've scraped by their opponents by a thread. Doesn't matter who they're playing. They could be playing the Nebraska School of the Blind, and they'll still find a way to only beat them by 4 or 5 points. It's ridiculous. They just somehow, and they only beat them by like 4 or 5 points. And people think that just because they have a good winning record, that means that somehow that equivalates to them being a good team. That doesn't, because every time they've played a good or at least decent team, they've absolutely just been floored and curb stomped. I mean, we saw it against Michigan back in 19, I believe. Then we saw it again a couple of years. I mean, we saw it in the playoffs last season against Alabama. You put Notre Dame up against an even just a decent team, and they just get slapped. Now, in fairness, they did beat Clemson that year, but that was without Trevor Lawrence. Mm-hmm. But as for this season, I think the most important thing that people need to realize of Notre Dame is that just because they're 2-0, that does not equivalate to them being a good team. I can find a whole list of SEC teams that right now would probably wipe the floor with Notre Dame, and it wouldn't be close. I'm tired of people being really high on Notre Dame just because they've managed to win a bunch of games by 4 or 5 points. It doesn't impress me at all.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I can honestly name the teams that could beat them this year. Miami probably could. I don't even know who they're playing this year, to be honest. I mean, they're not doing it like they did last year. They had to join the ACC. I don't even know who they're playing this year. So.
Well, I can name a few right now: Miami, USC, Stanford, and North Carolina. I think
I can see one of those, maybe 2 of those, maybe even 3 of those teams beating Notre Dame. And by the way, speaking of USC, breaking news from yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, Clay Helton has been relieved of his duties at Southern Cal. Who do you see that could probably lead USC?
Well, I've heard a whole bunch of different things. I saw this one. Of course, the big rumor running around now is that Urban Meyer somehow, after just being at Jacksonville for only a little bit, would somehow move his way back to USC. And I think that's about as true as Dan Mullen quitting at Florida and going to USC. I've heard both of those rumors on Twitter recently. So to be honest with you, I don't think there's any lead that you can go off of right now. It's more or less just somebody waiting for that opportunity. Somebody said Luke Fickell might be interested. I just don't think any of those things will turn out to be true. I think if USC were to get a guy, it's going to be either somebody that we've never heard of from where we are in our perspective, or it would be somebody that would just be completely shocking, like Urban Meyer or Dan Mullen, which I do not think is very likely.
I mean, I already got a guy that we don't know. I already got a guy that we don't know that's in our region that could be a good candidate. It's that guy at Iowa State. Now, I can't remember his name. I could see him leaving Iowa State to go to USC. I mean, that guy, I think he's been offered before by some other school, but I could see him probably taking the job at USC. Now, Now, Urban Meyer, that would be just like the Bobby Petrino crap. You see him coaching the Falcons, and all of a sudden, you see him a few days later after losing the game to Detroit. He is in the podium, saying, go Hogs and all that stuff. I mean, that will be the biggest snake move that Urban Meyer has done since faking his heart attack by leaving Florida for a couple years and then finally reappearing at Ohio State. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Urban Meyer left Jacksonville because
to me,
it's not even looking good for them at this point.
Oh, no doubt. To me, I could see that, but I don't know. And as for the Matt Campbell thing at Iowa State, I think Iowa State's in too much of a good place right now with Matt Campbell for him to leave and go to USC. It's possible, but I just do not see that happening.
I mean, we may not, but and also James Franklin. I heard names like that, and that could be a distraction for, by Penn State heading into the Auburn game. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen this upcoming weekend. But meanwhile, let's take a look at what happened to Ohio State. Ohio State loses to Oregon in the horseshoe. Did you see that coming?
Oh no, that completely caught me by surprise. I knew Ohio State had a couple of things to work on after having that nail biter with Minnesota, but losing to Oregon was something that I definitely did not expect to see. I knew it could have potentially been a really good game. I just did not see that happening.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, honestly, I knew Oregon. I mean, yeah, the ranking says they're 12th, but I honestly couldn't see them going into the horseshoe and beating them. I mean, they literally just beat, who was it, Fresno State by 7? I think that's how much they beat them by week 1. I didn't have an expectation for them going into Ohio State, but by golly, they did it. They beat Ohio State. Yeah. So now the Big 12, not Big 12, but the Big 10 right now, in my opinion, is down to 2 teams. You got Iowa and Penn State. Those are your 2, last line of defenses for the Big Ten. And, I mean, even though it's early in the season, but look, we all know what's going to happen to the Big Ten. They're somehow going to get some embarrassing loss by some small school from the Big Ten, like let's say Northwestern, and all of a sudden the Big Ten's out of the college football playoff. And, that's probably what I'll be seeing this year. But you never know. It's going to be a crazy college football season.
Yeah, no doubt. And, the thing is, we've said that about Ohio State. We've seen that with them losing to a team like Purdue or Iowa when they weren't as good as they were now. But Iowa this season, they are a real powerhouse, all right? Mm-hmm. Iowa, to me, this season has really got it together. They had a dominant win over Indiana. They looked like the most complete team week 1, no doubt about that. And then they beat Iowa State on the road playing against them week 2. And man, they just absolutely dominated that game in the trenches and on offense. Iowa right now to me looks like probably one of the most complete teams other than Alabama or Georgia. They just look like they have it together.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Iowa. I'll be honest. I picked Iowa State to win because it was going to be at Ames, Iowa. I mean, why not? If you're going to go into Ames, Iowa, you better bring your A game. And that's exactly what Iowa did. And they walked out of there with, I believe, the Cy-Hawk Trophy. And now they're getting ready to have another, hopefully, a good season for them in the Big Ten. And by the way, a former Iowa Hawkeye football player is now the WWE champion. I just found that out in the news yesterday. And his name is I think something Langston. I can't remember his last name, but yeah, I mean it is Langston, but I can't remember his first name. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought that was pretty cool, and I followed him throughout his career in the WWE. But congratulations to Big E. That's his name. But he got a real name, but it's something Langston. So anyway, shout out to him and congratulations again. By the way, let's jump real quick to Nebraska, Oklahoma, renewing their rivalry, an old Big 12 rivalry dating back over the years. It's supposed to be a big game. I think this game is going to be down in Norman, Oklahoma. So how do you see our future SEC neighbors doing?
God, this isn't going to be – well, it is a rivalry technically, but it ain't going to look like one Saturday. I'll tell you that much. Nebraska right now – is about pretty much what I kind of expected of Nebraska this season. Scott Frost has not impressed me at all the 3 or 4 years that he's been there. He's just not – he hasn't been able to get this program together in any way, shape, or form. They perform the same exact way every single year, and this year it's no different. They go out week 1 in a primetime game. It was week 0, actually. They had all the attention in the world, and a lot of people expected them to wipe the floor with Illinois. I actually picked Illinois in that game, and I'm glad I did because I was right. Illinois went out and beat Nebraska. So if you go out and lose to Illinois, no matter which team you are, you're not back. All right. You are not back to any type of competition in any conference, even if it's like the Pac-12 or something like that. You are not back anywhere. So to me, Oklahoma just seems like they have got way more talent, way more experience, more coaching advantages, an offense that's going to light the floor with about every defense that they'll play, especially Nebraska's. To me, I just do not think this is going to go any which way that's going to be good for Nebraska. I think Oklahoma is just going to outright dominate this game.
Yeah. I would say if this game is being played in Lincoln, Nebraska, I would probably take Nebraska, to be honest. But since this game is being played in Norman, Oklahoma, I would have to go with the Sooners. I mean, look, I even thought Nebraska would do good week 1 or week 0. No. And then the team they lost to, get this, the next 2 weeks they would lose to Texas San Antonio, and then they would lose to Virginia on the road. So, yeah, if you lose to a team that's lost to those 2 teams, you got nothing going on right there right now. I say right now this is the game right here that Scott Frost has got to win. I don't see it happening. But if it does, I mean, this is a game that he needs to win this weekend. If this happens, the whole freaking Nebraska fan base is going to lose their mind. I mean, and who knows? It could save his job for a while. But if he cannot even get at least 17 points on the board against Oklahoma, I can't see him lasting throughout the rest of the year. I honestly cannot.
Well, I don't see him lasting even with a win. Honestly, that's the only a win against Oklahoma is the only way I see Scott Frost's job being safe for this season, because the rest of the games that he has on the schedule, he loses to Oklahoma. Right, he starts out 2-2, then he's got to play the next games on the schedule. He's got the only winnable games on here. I see Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Ohio State. Those are all, to me, losses, which means out of Michigan State, Northwestern, Minnesota, and Purdue, gotta win all those. You can't lose one if you want to make a bowl game, and that was the goal set for Frost in Nebraska this season. So if you have to pull an amazing upset this season over a ranked Big Ten opponent, or you got to win out all of the games that you should against the opponents I just listed that Nebraska needs to beat in order to make a bowl game. If they don't do either of those things and go 5-7 or worse, Scott Frost's job, I think, is just gone. And I think, to me, Scott Frost would be the likely candidate to go to USC.
I don't know, man. You can't get a coach who can't even get at least 3 wins, maybe 4 wins in 1 year at Iowa. Nebraska. I don't think USC would go after Scott Frost. I mean, that's just me. And I mean, you have to go for a coach that's really good, and I still say it'd be Matt Campbell. Our next topic, Mississippi State. Even though they barely beat Louisiana Tech week 1, they look great against a pretty good North Carolina State team. What are your thoughts on Mississippi State and the the pirate thing that I forgot his last name now. But anyway, yeah. But what are your thoughts on Mississippi State right now?
Well, they definitely did. I think they looked a lot better than what people gave them credit for. Like, a lot of people had them losing this game for sure. And Will Rogers looked great. I like the offensive scheme that they've got. I think Mike Leach has really got this program moving in the right direction. To me, I think the matter of Mississippi State having a good season is how far in the SEC West can they finish? Because about every single poll or that you saw in the offseason for this year had Mississippi State finishing last in the SEC West by a wide very wide margin, even lower than like Arkansas and anyone else in that division. So I don't know how this will pay off for. I mean, this is a huge win, no doubt. Well, we got to see Mike Leach in conference play before we can make any statute decision on how good he is at Mississippi State.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, Mike Leach. And I'll be honest. I mean, yeah, last year wasn't his best year. Obviously, it was his first year. But listen, like he did at Washington State, I tell any Mississippi State fan, be patient. Be as patient as you can, because I promise you, Mike Leach is going to make Mississippi State one of the big teams that could actually maybe someday compete with Alabama. But this year, I don't know. No way they'll beat Alabama. I don't think there'll be a way they'll beat Auburn. They may beat LSU. Who, by the way, we need to mention them too. Losing to UCLA, we'll get to that in a minute. But I don't see them beating Arkansas. I honestly don't see them beating Ole Miss. But that's just some of those teams that I choose to probably beat Mississippi State or to lose to Mississippi State. Speaking of LSU, obviously week 1. I mean, I was thinking, man, after that off year they had last year with just some players backing out with COVID, and then you had some players that were so young. You got rid of Joe Burrow's gone to the NFL. I was thinking maybe LSU might be back and they would do great, but then they go to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, and then it's like we're watching the same LSU team from a year before, and even during the Les Miles era. So, at this point, if you're an Auburn Tiger fan, can you see Auburn finally getting that one win in Baton Rouge?
Well, I'll tell you this much, and this is something that I think is just a historical, well-known fact. The Auburn-LSU rivalry for most seasons, excluding last year, it is a very, very close game. Auburn versus LSU has always been one game that is just the prime time. You got to watch it game because it's going to be a really, really good game. And I think this could potentially be one of those years where we see that. So it just depends. It's almost like a coin flip for that game to me, whether or not I'd see Auburn getting the win. I'm in Baton Rouge. It's not going to be easy, without a doubt, for Auburn. Never going to be easy for any team to pick up a W in Baton Rouge. It's going to take all they've got, and I think that'll be said for Auburn as well. We'll have to see how it goes, though.
I mean, yeah, I agree with the history fact about Auburn and LSU being close with but except for last year, which I think the last year the final score was 45-7. I mean, I can't remember the last time LSU only scored 7 points against Auburn at Jordan-Hare because like you said, it's always a close game. But 2 years ago, Auburn came very close. They were actually the only team that's ever came close to beating the undefeated LSU team, and it was in Baton Rouge. But in the history, since 1999, Auburn has been 0 for however many games they are. I think it was either even or odd numbered years they play in Baton Rouge. They've been 0 for forever since the year 2000, where they cannot get a win in Baton Rouge. But I think this is the year that we finally get to see that curse being broken. And I mean, it's a few weeks out now, but I mean, I'm definitely not overlooking Penn State without a doubt. I'm just, talking about LSU and their loss at UCLA. I mean, I just don't know what we're going to see from LSU this year. Alabama, of course, same old Alabama. They dominate. They kick ass and take names, and then go home and get ready for the next game. But this weekend, it's going to be a challenge because they're probably going to be a challenge because they're heading to the Swamp to play in a SEC different division type game. They're traveling. This is one of the East teams they're playing this year. Florida, of course, the other one is obviously Tennessee. But this is the one team Alabama will play this year that's not a traditional East team. At Florida. So it's a 2:30 kickoff time on CBS on the Central Time Zone. Squid, can you see Florida maybe giving Alabama their first loss in a few years in the Swamp?
Nope, not at all. No. Of course, thing is, I've heard all of the people. there's so many possibilities with Alabama. I do not think they're going to finish this season unscathed. They're going to take, to me, I think it's very likely that they take a loss to at least somebody this season. Going undefeated 2 years in a row is just a very, very difficult feat to pull off. So could it be Florida? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to be Florida? Absolutely not. I think there's too many things in this game. You see, there were a lot of unanswered questions I saw with Florida in these last 2 weeks. I like what they've got on offense, but Emory Jones just does not look like he has it together. I've seen what Anthony Richardson can do, which I like. I like what I saw from him, no doubt about that. But we'll have to see what Dan Mullen decides. As there's still some coaching decisions that needs to be figured out. We don't even know whether or not he's going to go with Anthony Richardson in that game, which is I just think would be a big key for Florida in this game. And the main reason I do not think it's going to go their way is their defense. I do not think their defense has tightened up much at all this season, and I think Alabama is going to capitalize on that. And if this turns into a shootout, which I definitely think it will, I think Alabama would just outclass them in every single way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like you. Can I see Florida maybe winning there? Maybe not, but do they have a chance? They're going to have a chance. You're playing Alabama, you're always going to have a chance. But I don't think they're going to beat Alabama. So, I mean, I'll take Alabama by a score of, I'm going to say 45-30. That's what I'm looking at. I mean, look, because you remember last year in the SEC championship game, Florida gave them a run for their money, but it wasn't enough, and Alabama held on to win. And, of course, the rest of this history, they go on undefeated to win the national championship undefeated. Their first undefeated championship season since, I believe, it was 2009, the first national championship under Nick Saban. I think I'm right on that. Someone will have to correct me. But, yeah, that's a good accomplishment to go undefeated. But to try and do it 2 years in a row, it's like trying to be USC again. You try to go undefeated 2 years in a row, but who knows what will happen on the way. But anyway, let's shift right quick before we get to Auburn Penn State. Let's talk about a historic fact that happened this past weekend. And it wasn't in college football. It was actually in the NFL. I guess we include college football too. But Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars finally loses a football game. Not twice, not 3 times, but it's the first time ever that Trevor Lawrence has lost a football game, whether it's high school, college, or pros. But still, hey, it don't matter. It don't matter. That's still a great accomplishment. I mean, the guy's good, and there's no doubt, and there's no denying it. He's going to be a pretty good player in the future, but right now, things at Jacksonville, like I said earlier, are a mess, and they're trying to get it all cleaned up. But I'm sure they will. I'm sure Trevor Lawrence will get it cleaned up, and I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah, no doubt. That's a baffling stat, though.
Yeah. So let's head to our very last. Hold on. I don't want to get.
I love the advertisements.
I don't want any music to be copyrighted. I don't want this video to be copyrighted. But anyway, let's go to our main course. This is what I call the main course of the season. Of course, we had our first game against Akron. That's an appetizer. Alabama State, an appetizer. Here we are finally at the main course. A road game at the Whiteout at Happy Valley at Penn State. It's Auburn's first ever road game to a Big Ten school since 1931 when they had to go to Madison, Wisconsin. I didn't even know they even played at Madison, Wisconsin. I figured they probably played at Ohio State. But anyway, this is Auburn's first ever journey to Penn State. Obviously, it will be a whiteout, but in the history of Penn State football and whiteout games, I think I'm right on this. They are 8-8, or either that or 8-9 historically in whiteout games. So maybe history will be on Auburn's side this weekend. Says here Penn State has a 62% chance of beating Auburn, making it the 37% chance if you round it up. This is 37.9, but we've rounded up 38% chance to beat Penn State. Penn State opens up as it opened up as a 6.5 point favorite, but now it dropped down to 5 point favorite. Nighttime at Happy Valley. Squid's hard. I need to know who is walking out of Penn State with the win.
Ooh, this is a tough one for me to call.
And I'm sorry. Let me say. I forgot to say this. This is, other than Nebraska, Oklahoma. This is probably going to be the biggest non-conference game of the weekend. You got College Game Day going there too.
Aflac policyholders have been paid $37 billion.
Nick
directly.
Saban,
That's a lot of money.
Wait a minute there, Nick Saban. I got to speak.
Get help with expenses health insurance doesn't cover.
You can get your turn later, Nick Saban.
Is an official sponsor of.
Oh wait, is it still playing? I had it muted.
Yeah, it's still playing.
Oh, okay. I'll pause that real quick. But anyway, go ahead and give me your thoughts on how you think this game is going to go this weekend at Happy Valley.
Well, I think, for one thing, I know this for a fact. This is going to be probably a barn burner. This is going to be a battle of the ages to witness. Both of these teams, I mean, 2-0, both ranked, both pretty good teams heading into the season. A lot of hype in this matchup on both sides. Penn State recovering after a horrific 2020 season, and Auburn coming in with a first-year head coach in Brian Harsin. A lot of hype on him and Bo Nix. This is going to be a matchup, and I'm pretty sure no matter who wins today, we're going to figure out a lot about both teams, whether or not Penn State is the real deal or Brian Harsin has it together as well. We'll just have to see what happens in that matchup. It looks like we lost TigerWarEagle14. Oh, no. That doesn't seem very good. Well, in the meantime, I'll tell you this much. Sean Clifford, I like what he's done. He's only been there for like 25 years. So we'll have to see what he can do as, he's definitely a good quarterback. I like what he's done. Bo Nix, we'll have to see what he's got. I think he's got the arm and the talent capable of winning this game. It's just going to be a matter of whether or not the wide receivers can get it together and whether or not they can get moving forward. And welcome back, Tiger Eagle.
Yeah, sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties. Can you repeat what you were just saying? I'm sorry.
Well, I'll tell you this much. Sean Clifford, he's only been at Penn State for 25 years. Redshirt senior. This is going to be a big night for Sean Clifford, no doubt. Bo Nix, same thing. Like what he's got going. I think he has the potential to win this game. It's just going to be a matter of whether or not his receivers can help him out on that side as well. So we'll have to see we'll just have to see what can be done. I think I like both of these teams in this matchup. Who do you have in this game?
Well, you obviously know I'm going with Auburn, but here's the thing that's going to worry me though. And I've seen it the past couple of weeks. Can our offensive line protect Bo Nix? Now, obviously, during the Akron game, he looked comfortable, and the offensive line did their job. Alabama State, it was 11 a.m. kickoff, but still, they kind of have to do some adjustment right there trying to protect them better. And this Penn State defensive line, I've watched them play Wisconsin. Dude, Wisconsin should have won that ball game. And you could blame it on the coaching. You could blame it on the play calling. But here's my theory on this. Penn State obviously – won that game fair and square, obviously, but they deserved it. It was a tough game at Wisconsin to start the season, but this is going to be. I'm sure I don't know how many people were at the Ball State game, Penn State game last week, but I'm pretty sure that place is going to be filled to the brim because if my history is correct, it's now been 10 years since an SEC team has gone to Penn State, that being Alabama, with A.J. McCarron and Trent Richardson that year. So this is going to be without a shadow of a doubt. Other than the Ohio State game in 2014, other than I think that's about it, or the Michigan game from years ago, this is going to be the biggest game in Penn State history for sure. But you're not playing – this is not Alabama. This is going to be Auburn. And I do think our running game is pretty good too, because we got Tank Bigsby. Obviously, Bo Nix has got to do good. Our receivers need to start catching the football. Well, obviously, I saw a lot of mistakes on the wide receivers this past weekend against Alabama State. But I do think Auburn will get it cleaned up. And my final score prediction for Auburn and Penn State, I'm looking at 24-20 Tigers.
Well, here's the thing about this game, and you're right about this. Penn State Auburn is definitely going to be a game of the ages. Could be one of this is definitely going to be one of the most important games for both teams this season in terms of it being one of the best, or in terms of it being one of the most important games Penn State's played in history. I don't know about that. I do think this will be an important game for them going into this season, especially since, just to prove dominance in terms of conferences, Big Ten versus SEC, no doubt about it. So to me, I think the matter of who I think is going to win this game is how much can Auburn improve from last week? How much can their offense move forward going into this season? How can they move forward, and can Brian Harsin get them really in the right direction for this game and get them the win? In Penn State, well, it's hard for me to tell. This is a 50-50 game, and I'm going to go with Auburn in this one. I think Brian Harsin can and will do what it takes to get Auburn moving in that right direction. Like you talked about, those wide receivers dropping the balls are the only issue that I've seen with Auburn this season. So to me, I think the big key is that if they can get that offense going forward, I think the rest is history, and I think the Auburn Tigers will do just what they need to get the win. So my final score prediction, I think it's going to be 20-14 Auburn.
And I will say this. By the way, I saw an interview today on the Paul Feinbaum show of Jay Paterno, who, by the way, is the son of the late, great, and much respect to him, Joe Paterno, God rest his soul. And he talked about how the story of how he would send letters to Paul Bear Bryant. This was back when Alabama and Penn State used to schedule like a 10-year home-and-home situation type of deal. Maybe I think it was like 2 games in Birmingham. You had some in Tuscaloosa. This was back when Alabama and Penn State was a rivalry in some case, because you had to have that New York audience watching Alabama and Penn State too, and of course Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. But I mean, now that you're adding Auburn, I mean, this is one of those games that I find kind of interesting and intriguing to see a SEC team going north to a Big Ten school. I find that exciting, and I really wanted to do this trip so bad, but obviously I got work this Saturday, but I'll be definitely home in time to watch that game and hopefully watch the Tigers get a historic win in Happy Valley. This will also be the first time ever that Auburn and Penn State have met in the regular season. The only time they've ever met was twice in a bowl game. I believe it was in the Citrus Bowl both times. Other than that, I believe that's all the time we've got. Oh, by the way, I have a major announcement I want to make. This Thursday, tomorrow, or either tomorrow or Friday, I will be releasing a hype and hate video, my first one in quite a while, for the Penn State game. So y'all stay tuned for that. And Squidtard, we need to do this again, man. Like I said, it has been a long time since we've done a show, and I can't wait to do it. And maybe next week we'll do it again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, man. Take care, and I'll see you later.
No problem. See you later, man. Thank you for letting me on the show. Y'all make sure to subscribe to this man, by the way.
And subscribe to my man Squidtard if y'all haven't done it yet. That's all the time we got, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't done it yet, like, comment, and subscribe for more. Squidtard, again, I thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you guys next week. See y'all.
Yep, see y'all. Power to Tardaria. Beep-a-dee.